Well, another UFC card is in the books, and the UFC leaves Sao Paulo with, you know what? A lot of people are complaining about the main event. A lot of people are saying the card was not very good. I don't know. I enjoyed it. It was pretty decent, pretty solid. I really enjoyed watching Nicholas Dalby pick up a win. We learned some things about some prospects, such as, well, specifically Gabriel Bonfim in the co-main event. And I don't know if we learned anything about Jailton Almeida, but we deep in conceptions, I guess. And hey, Abu Magomedov lost. that makes me happy. Two things I do want to talk about real quick here. And this is just a verbiage thing. MMA has like an overuse of, in my opinion, two concepts, words, what do you want to call it? Prospect and fraud check. Because that came up a lot in this card. There was, hey guys, Rinat Fakhretdinov is a big prospect. No, he's 32. This happens a lot. The first I realized it was somebody, one of those admittedly engagement farming accounts is like, which of these four middleweights are the best prospect going forward in the UFC? And it was literally three dudes over the age of 30. I was like, well, one of these is a prospect. The other three aren't. So I'm going to have to go with the only one that actually is. And I don't know. I just think the prospect is really, really overused. It's kind of weird because like in almost any other sport, a prospect is a guy who's about to be drafted in the NFL or the, specifically the NFL and NBA, basketball as well. And then, you get a little bit more in baseball and hockey where people will spend some time in the minor leagues or the farm system, depending on your terminology. And as a result, they will stay kind of that. But like the truth of the matter is that like, I'm honestly tempted to say there are basically no prospects in the UFC because it's the UFC. You have arrived. Now, there are some exceptions. Guys like Raul Rosas Jr. who are like, 19 years old. Okay, yeah, that's still a prospect. Probably anyone under like 25. But at some point, like we just went crazy. We just gone insane about what a prospect is. Like people are still like, hey man, Jailton Almeida is a prospect. No, he's 32 years old. And he's very much like a formed thing. Like fighters in their 30s, with a few exceptions, do not like suddenly develop into something that they're not already. So, yeah, that to me is a bit weird. And then the fraud check thing is like, I don't know, every time someone loses who's supposed to be good and has like a hype train or whatever, it's like, ooh, fraud checked. Boom. It's like, no, like, I mean, we have like terms like prospect loss for a reason. People lose. Like the number of actually undefeated fighters that are battle tested are very, very few. Like you're talking like John Jones, whose official only loss is, well, bull crap. Habib went undefeated. That is a big thing. That's a big part of it. But like people lose. People lose. If they get fraud checked, it has to be something very specific that we thought wasn't going to be a problem, I guess, as fans. So like, in this case, Rinat Fakhretdinov and Gabriel Bonfim are the two fraud-checked fighters. Although Rinat did not lose. What was fraud-checked about them? They were things we knew. Coming into the fight, I guess I'll start with Bonfim Dalby. My concern with Bonfim Dalby was fairly simple. It is, we have seen Gabriel Bonfim do a lot of dynamic, cool, offensive stuff. Landing big strikes, going for big submissions. And I picked him to win this fight because I did think that would carry through here. But at the same time, Nicholas Dalby was the first guy who was going to be tough, stand up to the punishment, and go through. And Bonfim won the first round, although the stand-up was not really going nearly as well for him. But like, he did have the big takedown towards the end. Got top control, got side control, controlled it. Ended up on top, couple of hammer fists, did a good job. And then in the second round, he comes out, goes with the takedown, gets him at return. It's like, all right, the wrestling is functioning. It's doing good. But Dalby's like, no, I'm not going to be one. I'm not going to fall into that Darce choke that like Bonfim was trying to set up a little bit there. I don't think it was like a serious. I think it was like an idea of like a troll thing. You threaten with the Darce choke, keeps him down, keeps him belly to the mat, etc. Good ideas, but I'm not going to simply make a mistake that allows you to Darce choke me, because that is something that Bonfim has been doing. He's been front headlock submission kind of guy. That is his primary weapon for finishing fights. And Dalby gets up and just keeps pressuring. He's like, dude, I'm just going to keep coming forward. I am going to keep coming forward. I'm going to clinch with you. I'm going to land knees. I'm going to be super strong, because Dalby seems like one of the strongest guys in the clinch, like of all time. I just mean like physical strength. Like his ability to control people in the clinch is very good. Like if he had a wrestling background, I think he'd be legitimately terrifying. But just make it dirty, make it ugly, hurt him with the knees, and then start to break him. Big knee drops him, ground and pound, finish the job. And is that a fraud check? I don't know. I think it's a fraud check if going forward, 26-year-old Gabriel Bonfim doesn't learn from this and kind of me, because it's MMA. Very quickly in the UFC, you're going to face something you did not face on the regional scene. Someone who just doesn't go away. And that's why a guy like Nicholas Dalby is such an important archetype of fighter that you want to have at every weight class. That guy who is not a great athlete. He's not a super studly athlete outside of the strength. But he is that guy who, unlike everyone that people fight on the regional scene, does not go away when you hit them with your best shot. You hit them, you hurt them, and they keep coming. It's that Rocky Balboa, I guess, like dynamic. There's that line in Rocky 2 with the, I saw you hit that man with the best stuff you have ever hit a man with. And he kept coming. And that is the Dalby dynamic. Could this be a long-term, like, actual fraud moment for Bonfim? Like a long-term, unfixable problem? Maybe. There is absolutely that chance. But, guys, he's 26 years old. He's just taken a loss for the first time. I believe this was his first loss. I believe he was actually undefeated. Or am I thinking of some other Brazilian on the matter here? Let me pull up the card here real quick. Fight night. Yeah, this is his first loss in 16 professional fights. I don't believe that a fraud check on a first loss is appropriate. If we're talking about this in 6 months' time, or however long it takes you to fight, I guess that's the problem. But if we're talking 1-2 fights down the road and we still don't know if Bonfim can push through, I don't want to even say adversity, but not being able to just instantly multitude, then we have a fraud check. But the truth of the matter is, you're facing Nicholas Dalby, one of the toughest men you're ever going to fight. Stuff happens. For next opponents, I've got Dalby versus Joaquin Buckley, because so much fun. And I've got Bonfim versus Max Griffin. Max Griffin is not as tough as Dalby, but he is a tough guy. He is a veteran. He will push through. He will make adaptations. He is, a pretty good athlete, actually. Max Griffin was, again, a falsely labeled prospect, because I do recall people being like, he's going to be so good. I'm like, he's 31. So it was kind of the same problem. But, I think that's a really good fight. I think that's a place to go. Now, you could go way further down, just get Bonfim a win. And if you're his manager, that's what you want, because you don't want to immediately test out what was just found out to be a problem. You want to get kind of that confidence back. And then maybe the fight after that is when you want to do a Max Griffin. But this is the UFC. You ain't going to get it. As a general rule, they are not going to step Bonfim down that far. Unlikely. So get ready for a Max Griffin style test. And then in the main event, Jailton Almeida just basically grappled Derek Lewis for 25 minutes and did his thing. I gave 10-8s in the first 2 rounds, 10-9s in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th myself, but you could go all kinds of different combinations here. Lewis remained dangerous throughout, jumping knees, uppercuts, the Lewis stuff, the moments of like, oh my God, this could be the end. But at the end of the day, he did stuff a couple takedowns, but he was, I don't want to say taken down at will because it was hard to get them, but like he was taken down. He was comprehensively outgrappled. He remained calm, serene, didn't present any like super obvious openings for Almeida to go for a submission after the first 2 rounds. Almeida, I think, did get a little bit tired. I think that is a little bit concerning, but like, I think my problem in terms of reaction to this, that in comparison to like the average, not the average, but like the vocal Twitter crowd, is people are really, really, really let down with Almeida, it seems. And I'm just not, because I think my thing was I was aware of his limitations. Like, he is a grappler who is small at heavyweight. And also, he previously always went to his knees on shots. Didn't do that here. Improvement. So, like, that's the thing, is like we saw an actual step forward from Almeida. His takedowns, I think, actually were the best we've ever seen them be. It's just, he was facing the biggest and strongest guy he's probably ever going to fight. But it was just that when it comes down to it, I always thought that Almeida at heavyweight is a guy who's going to lose to Jones. He's a guy who's going to lose to Aspinall. He's a guy who's going to lose to Pavlovich. And people were trying to prop him up as like the third big prospect. And like, I would pick Curtis Blades over. Like, that's the problem. Is that I never thought future champion, title contender, sure. This is heavyweight, guys. Like, anyone fairly moderately good probably going to fight for a title at some point. But and that the UFC wants to, push. But I never thought like champion. I was like always a cut below. He's the guy who I am going to pick to beat Derek Lewis, and he did. But he's the guy I'm not really going to ever pick to be the champion. And I feel like a lot of fans were in a step further. Like, this is actually a future champion. It's just like, no. I don't really know how that works being the size he is. 205? 205 is harder because, like, the wrestling is better, the athleticism is better, and the advantages he has are actually lesser. So, like, I had problems there. So, like, I guess I had a lower ceiling in mind for Almeida. So the fact that he goes out here and has to go to decision with Derek Lewis, not really all that disturbing. Are there some things I'd like to see improve? Yeah, sure. There were points where he would have dominant position and was not really unloading ground and pound. I want more elbows. I want more punishment. I want him to take his top control from a control and submission-based offense to keeping those, to keeping the control, keeping the submissions, but also just adding raw punishment. Get the TKOs, get cuts, get stoppages, get actual damage, because the scoring criteria is so damage-oriented, and it's just a good idea. So I would like to see that improve. There were moments of that where he did pretty good ground and pound, especially I think it was the 3rd round. Just checking my notes here. Yeah, it was the 3rd round where he got going. He actually did some good ground and pound for about 20 seconds there, where he did a really good job. I don't know. I guess I'm just in a kerfuffle of like, I don't know. Do you guys think that like Derek Lewis is instant tappings? Because I just don't. I mean, I know Sergey Spivak did tap him, and that's a bad sign. But I mean, Almeida still has the athleticism. He appears to be working on his takedown games. I just want more ground and pound and maybe some more variety. Boom. There you go. That's it. I got Alexander Volkov next for him because I don't really know who else you do. And Derek Lewis, I've been calling for a fight with Jairzinho Rosenstruck for what feels like forever. Please do that. 2 massive hitters? Come on, let's have some fun. Rodrigo Nascimento basically worked Dontel Mays with pressure. Pressure, throwing some decent combinations, and working some clinch game. Won all 3 rounds on my card. Did a great job. Big win. Mays continues to be just absolutely frustrating because there will be moments in every fight he has where it's like, this guy has a very high ceiling and he is just not developing in any way, shape, or form. He's 31 years old. I guess at heavyweight, that's still technically young, but I don't know. There at some point has to be a change. New coaching situation, new training partners. I don't know what it is, but it would have to be something. Sorry for the background noise. Yeah. I've got Nascimento versus Alexander Romanov. I've got Mays against Mo Usman. There you go. Kyle Bahayo versus Abus Magomedov. First round was interesting and somewhat competitive. Abus seemed to be trying to pace himself, not being the crazy guy he is usually at the beginning of fights. And Bahayo just kind of did some counter work, got poked in the eye, and then eventually started to take over in the second and third round as things go on. You know, just, I don't know. It wasn't a great fight, but I also don't really look forward to Abus Magomedov fights. So, cool. He got the win. Next opponents, Kyle Bahayo wants DDP. That's not happening, and I thought that was a major, major misstep. Don't get me wrong. Dream big, call out big, but like Kyle Bahayo has a presence, and he was a hometown guy here. The crowd was very much on his side. Had he called out someone that was realistic, he probably would get it. And I'd probably be advocating for it. But like DDP is way too far up the line. And as a result, I end up going with like Jack Hermanson. You don't want Jack Hermanson. Not that, to be clear, that's not a thought that like Hermanson's going to beat Kyle Bahayo. It's just, it's a fight that is way more difficult than the payoff would be. And that is why there is not great. And why I wish Kyle Bahayo had made a better call out. For Abus, I don't care. Like the thing is, like people have like said this. You don't think Abus Magomedov is like UFC caliber? I do, but he's one of those rare fighters that like is dangerous for a round and then gasses. There's nothing interesting with that, realistically speaking. He's going to lose to a lot of guys that are actual contenders. And he's going to give some troubling moments to, like, some other people. So, I guess the thing is like, Abus Magomedov's fights look very, very similar regardless of who's across the cage from him. And again, he's a guy who is, I got to write down here, 33. So, like, he's very much a finished product. Like, you're 33 years old and you have cardio issues. You're not fixing that now. Like, it's not happening. And I guess like he is the epitome of the Russian/Dagestani hype train that is coming up all the time now, where it's like, oh my God, these Dagestanis, they just built different. Like that whole country are freaking mutants. And it's like, no. Like it's like anything else. Yeah, sure. They start early. They identify people for combat sports earlier on in terms of athleticism, and they don't really do other sports. And yes, that is going to lead to a fairly good roster of national fighters. But it does not mean that they aren't going to also have some crappy ones. And like Abus is particularly weird because like he gets a Dagestani cred while like training out of Germany. So I don't know. I am more annoyed with him than probably I have any actual like cause to be. But like it's just that I don't know. Two exciting fights. I was really disappointed we lost Rodolfo Vieira versus Armin Petrosian. Was really disappointed we lost Ishmael Bonfim versus Bij Michel. I was looking forward to both those fights. Elvis Brenner versus Kynan Khrushchevsky was a weird knockout. Like it looked like Brenner was actually really struggling with Khrushchevsky's range. He was like getting pressured and like, yeah, sure, he was working like a lot of kicks and like the volume might have been in his favor even, like kicking the leg, kicking the body. But he seemed really actually for Elvis Brenner, who is a guy who we have become accustomed to being like a bit of a crazy man. The fact that he was kind of like hesitant and low volume was a bit weird. And then he just randomly clonked Krzyzewski with like 2 overhands and like put him down. And it's just, I don't know, it's just the weirdest ending possible. For Brenner, I've got like Natan Levy is like just a fun fight. And Krzyzewski, it's a fodder type of thing because he's a wild man. He doesn't have good defense. He's not especially durable, it seems. Like he's big. He's got size. He's got reasonable athleticism. There is no reason to think that he can't be a pretty dangerous, fun action fighter. But he is, we're harping on this. He's 32 years old, and like he really just is kind of a brawler. And not a super durable one. Liza Zaleski versus Renat Fakhretdinov. Fakhretdinov looked really good in the first round. Arguably got a 10-8. Knocked down Zaleski, put the pressure on, did some good things. Not a lot of people called for 10-8 here. I did not score it a 10-8. I scored this fight a draw. But at the same time, I think there's a possible argument that the first round should have been 10-8. Like, Fakhretdinov very, very nearly finished the fight. Like, it was slightly surprising that Zaleski survived it. And my notes are just littered with, like, constant thoughts here of, Renat Fakhretdinov. I am all for, like, well-rounded fighters who like can fight in every respect. I think being well-rounded is something that every fighter should strive for. The irony is that like watching Fakhretdinov strike, like I my notes are all just reading like, if Fakhretdinov just didn't strike and tried to wrestle and tried to be a one-dimensional wrestler, he would probably be better because his stand-up is so bad. Like he does it with confidence and it's like very clear that like he thinks he's a good striker, and he is not. It's just it is bad. Like he's big and he's got like power and stuff. Like there are things there that are kind of awkward to deal with him on the feet, just because of the height, the reach, so on. Like 6 feet tall at welterweight, pretty tall, 74-inch reach, pretty explosive, pretty powerful, etc. Like there's some awkwardness there, and just the complete overhand winging like open nature of it and the aggression. Yeah, it's hard to deal with. But like Zaleski, who is no one's idea of a like super great boxer. His fight with the Leech kind of pointed that out. But like he's just picking him apart, landing like some of the cleanest stuff in the second and third round, turns it on in the third round, eventually drops him with a liver kick. He is beating that body up, destroying it, puts him down, almost finishes him. Honestly, was a little bit disappointed with his fight IQ because I think a finish was there. I think had he like started kneeing the body while he had Fakhretdinov on the ground, he probably could have finished him. Because I imagine that liver, that body was not feeling good at all. So just like keep smashing it. But instead, he was doing like some ground and pound, looking for a rear naked choke, looking for back control, and so on. And eventually, and he got very, very close. I want to say that with the submission, it was very, very, very close. Like there were moments where the commentary was like, is he done? And I didn't think he was done. Like I could see the eyes open and so on. He wasn't passed out, but like it seriously looked bad. And eventually Renat got out of that. And had he just like kept popping the body, probably would have won it right there and then. Instead, he ends up with a draw with a 10-8 third round. One judge actually scored the fight for him. I'm not, by him, I mean Zaleski. I'm not super mad about it because I scored the second round for Renat on essentially just volume. He landed more. He was more aggressive. He landed some good stuff. But there was some incredibly smooth counters. Not smooth, but like clean counters being landed by Zaleski. I have no problem with that second round going to him. I was pretty happy with this fight. In general, I was pretty happy with this fight because Fakhretdinov is like the lightning rod of my dislike. A guy who is, such a great prospect. He's in his 30s. Oh, he's got that Dagestani ability, and it's like he's not actually Dagestani. He's a Tatar. He's a Tatar. He still got that credit from like the Dagestani fan accounts. It's just like, and the other thing, like perhaps the thing is like people are all excited about it. Is like, where was this excitement for John Fitch, man? Because he's kind of just John Fitch, but Russian and more confident as a striker. He's going to become John Finch when he realizes he's a terrible striker. But I don't know. Anyways, it was a good fight. It was a fun fight. Zaleski's always a fun opponent. I've got Zaleski versus Chaos Williams, but they may rebook this. I've got Renat versus Jeremiah Wells, but again, they might rebook this. But I like the Zaleski versus Williams fight and the Fakhretdinov versus Wells fights a lot more. We lost Daniel Marcos versus Victor Hugo. That's a shame. That was going to be a fun fight, I think. And then we get to Vitor Petrino versus Modestas Bukauskas 205 match. It's Petrino and I have a weird thing going on here. Like, the guy clearly has incredible physical talents. Like, when he elevated and just basically picked up Bukauskas in the first round, slammed into the mat, it's like, wow. And he has like some good ideas. The pressure, the power striking, the power grappling. I like it. I like it a lot. But like, it also does feel like there's a lot of inefficiency that he needs to work through. And the problem is that at 205, they keep giving him guys who don't really punish that. Now, he does seem to have an insane gas tank, which also makes up for it. But it does feel like that as he gets up, there's at some point going to be a moment where Petrino, despite the fact that he is an amazing athlete and he has confidence and he has the right ideas and the general conceptus of a elite top end title contending 205 game, but at the same time, like, there's just there's a lot of sloppiness to it that is going to get exploited is the word I'm looking for at some point. And I'm just, part of my brain is just like waiting for that moment. But I didn't think it would be Bukauskas, and it wasn't. Weird moment in the start of the second round where Bukauskas apparently came out without his mouth guard in. Mark Goddard was not happy. And then Vitor Petrino just said good night, knocked him out with a big ass hook. Nothing super technical about it. Just I am going to hit you with a meat hammer, and you are going to go down. For Petrino, I've got Felipe Lins. Kind of a similar test to Bukauskas, a guy who doesn't instantly fold, does present some power and some strength and some size and some reasonable skills. See what happens. Bukauskas I've got against Nick Mariano, who hasn't fought in a bit. It would be kind of interesting to see the contrasting styles of Bukauskas' kind of outside striking game, where he likes to snipe, he likes to counter, likes to fight at kind of a low pace, and Nega Mariano's very unsophisticated pressure striking, where he just kind of trottles forward at you. I think I would get a kick out of that fight. And they're two guys that aren't really doing anything right now. Angela Hill versus Denise Gomes. Kind of was like what I thought it was going to be, frankly. Hill was able to clinch, was able to take her down, had a hard time controlling her, but Gomes started to wear down as the fight went on. Gomes had some moments on the feet, don't get me wrong, very nice striking. You know, she has the danger factor. I get it, I understand, but like, I want a bunch of money betting on Angela Hill on underdog odds against someone who is still pretty new to the UFC. I'm pretty happy with that. I don't have much else to say about the fight, because like that was kind of the repeat of it. Was just like, it's just like it was exactly what I thought. It's like I watched Gomes versus Luke Boomy and got the absolute thought that Angela Hill can do this. She can do the same thing she did to Loma Luke Boomy, and that Loma Luke Boomy did to Denise Gomes. She can replicate that. She can do that. It's not like an MMA math thing. Like, again, MMA math is kind of useless, but like, you watch someone get asked the same questions by a fighter who was asked those questions by that person and failed to have answers to them. And you can kind of figure out what's going to go on here. So like, I didn't understand it. I know Angela Hill's 38 years old. That fight against Mackenzie Dern was kind of ugly, but Denise Gomes is not Mackenzie Dern. That's what it comes down to. And yeah, go Angela Hill. One of my favorite strawweights. She called out Michelle Watterson in just like all her rematches. There is another veteran she has never fought, Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Make it happen. Come on, that's a fight that has to happen. How has that not happened before now? I need that to happen. For Gomes, I've got Sam Hughes. Because Sam Hughes will present some of the similar things that she failed at here. A aggressive clinch mixing game with some takedowns and some attempts to control and a reasonable high pace and a tough, hard-nosed, durable opponent. And let's see what happens. It's a step down, I think. But like in the same vein as what she had happen here. Now, you could also go the route of giving her someone, not Bruna Brazil, because she's already beat her, but like someone like a Bruna Brazil who's going to stand with her and, let her get a highlight reel KO. That's an option. That's fine. But I find the Hughes fight a little bit more interesting. And it's also that I think that like a lot of women can work that sort of same game. And this is something that Gomes has to solve before I'm really going to buy into a hype train. Then we go to Montserrat Caneo Ruiz versus Eduardo Mora. Mora blew weight badly, which is not surprising. She's huge. 5'6" at strawweight is big to begin with, and she's thick. She looked 2 weight classes bigger than Ruiz. And I know part of that is Ruiz is 5 feet tall. She's an atomweight. Like, essentially, if the UFC had an atomweight division, Ruiz would be someone in it, along with the leagues of Tisha Torres, Michelle Watt. I have always been struggling to figure this out because Michelle Watterson is a William Morris / Endeavor client, a literal client of the owners of the UFC. They are literally involved in the management of her career. And she was an atomweight. Now, I don't think she can make atomweight now. She's kind of put some weight on intentionally. Like that, she has spoken about like trying to beef up to be an actual strawweight. Why was atomweight not a thing? Also, atomweight, it's a good division. There's a solid supply. If you go into a jiu-jitsu school, an MMA gym, you will find some reasonably athletic atomweight size ladies who you could theoretically build a division around. It's pretty good. Some of the best fights you're going to see in like Invicta FC, atomweight. Do it. Make it happen. You have the makings of the division already. You have Tabitha Ricci. You have Tisha Torres. You have Caneo Ruiz, who wouldn't be amazing, but hey, she's there. You have, probably, to be honest, Carla Esparza, your original strawweight champion, and multi-time strawweight champion, Carla Esparza, would be right there. You could do Carla Esparza versus, I don't know, Tisha Torres or Tabitha Ricci, inaugural title right there. Boom. Bang, bang, bang. I'm not really a fan of like, extreme cutting of weight and so on. So like, in a way, I kind of like that, these girls have to fight at strawweight. It's probably healthier. But like at the same time, they're fighting girls who are huge. Like it doesn't look fair. But anyways, as for the fight itself, Ruiz got just worked and stopped in the second round with ground and pound. Could have been stopped before that. I gave it 10-8 in the first round. Like the problem with Ruiz is that like she is a dirty boxer who clinches. And then like when they talk about how good of a wrestler she is a scarf and arm. She is a head and arm throw specialist. And it showed because she couldn't really stop Mora from getting a takedown. Now, she did kind of stop the first one when Mora basically just fell to her back and then instantly swept her. But I don't think she stopped her. I think Mora like literally just fell to her back and then instantly swept her. Like I think that was literally it. And then she, pounded on her, threatened the scarf choke, took her back for a little bit, worked for a rear naked choke. It was just not fair. Like it was not fair. And then in the second round, Mora did show off some good striking. Actually, her boxing looked sharper than I expected it to be. Like some not good, but it's good enough that it threatens some things and will set up takedowns and make her a very, very scary prospect. And she called out Diana Belbita in her post-fight speech, which is weird because I don't know why anyone really calls out Diana Belbita just in general. But hey, it's an easy to win fight. She's a somewhat known commodity. It would be her second UFC fight. Why not? And for Kaneo, I don't really care. She's kind of in the same boat a little bit as Abus Magomedov, although better, because number one, women's MMA is more raw as a general rule. And she at least does have like a defined thing that she can do for 15 minutes. Like she at least is a full fighter. But like she is going to try to more or less do the same thing against anybody. And if they're a strong grappler, it's going to fail hard. And if they're not a strong grappler, it might succeed. But she's also really, really small for someone who is kind of at the end of the day, like a clinch fighter and like dirty boxer. Like, how do you make that work when you're 5 feet tall and a weight class smaller than everyone you're fighting? So I don't know. I'm not saying cut her. I'm not saying get rid of her. I'm not saying she's bad. It's just that the person that she probably is an interesting fight with is probably not on the roster right this second. Is probably basically she is the welcome mat for a new Dana White Contender Series strawweight. It's kind of her gig that she's kind of settled into. Jacqueline Amaran was in her second fight, but like that was a similar thing. And then this one here. And then Kauê Fernandes versus Mark Diakese. I scored the fight for Diakese, 29-28. It was a split decision. I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I think the problem with the fight is that I keep wanting Diakese to learn and take his physically solid top game and takedown game and make it into something I actually really look forward to, and it keeps not happening. But Fernandes was open to getting taken down. He got taken down. He got controlled to a certain degree. And yeah, there wasn't a lot going on the top, but there wasn't a lot of stand-up either. I'm filled with a general feeling of not really caring. Although we did get a super cool, like, over-under takedown by DKC. We also got like a super weird, like, cartwheel stand-up from mount from Almeida later in the night. So, like, it was a night of super athletic but dumb grappling moments. DKC versus Terrence McKinney. Why has that not happened? Make that happen. Do that. Do it. Do it now. Do it on the next card. Do it. And Kauê Fernandes, it's kind of like going kind of a fodder thing. Like, I mean, like, to be clear, being given your UFC debut against Mark Diakese is like, that's a big thing. That's too big of a step up, frankly. So I think he's back to Dana White Contender Series fodder. Like, give him someone who won on the Contender Series. See what he can do, because he's got athleticism. He's got some physical tools. He's got some crazy creativity at times. Like, I'm interested, but like, there's a lot of development, and hopefully this is a bit of a wake-up call for him going forward. So that was the fight card. Check out the links down below, to the left, to the right, wherever you happen to be watching. It'll be a slightly different location because all the platforms do a little bit different. Usually below, though. Check that out. Discord. On the Discord, we've got the Bloody Mania November edition, which is when we, like, you know, take the fight sim out and let it go wild and crazy and Mortal Kombat-esque. So we got that currently shaping up. So if you want to get in on that, go ahead. The career mode is taking a step forward with the our rival to the UFC promotion doing its first card. That's fun. And you can just talk with a bunch of MMA fans who are pretty cool people. So with that said, have a good day. I hope you enjoyed it. And we got UFC 295 coming up.